Hello, I'm your module leader for Business Research Methods, Dr. Xiangping Du. Followed by the last presentation on the overview of a literature review. In this presentation, I'm going to discuss how can you construct a critical literature review. So first of all, what does critical mean? There are several meanings with reference to the term critical. So for example, the first example says, my friend was very critical of me. She said I never arrived anywhere on time. So in these circumstances, the use of critical is a very negative accusation. So it means the friend accused him of being late. So the second example saying, the company were at a critical time in their development when they decided to diversify their product range. So the critical in this context means it's very important, a vital stage or point. So important and vital. So the third example, the essay gives a critical account of the 2008 financial collapses in US. So critical here is the critical, what we would normally use in academic sense, which refers to the both positive and negative side of an account. So critical in academic writing, so that means try to avoid a shopping list or simple description. So instead of just saying what X, Y, Z said, so you need to have both accounts from both point of view. So always ask questions like we discussed in the last presentation. When you read some kind of literature, you don't just say, oh, Smith suggests this, therefore this must be true, and you take it for granted. Always ask yourself, oh, well, who's Smith? What did he say, and why he state this in this way, and where is this account based, and when did he construct this account, and why did how this conclusion is being reached? And so what would this the same account if this happens in different context? Yeah. So what about if I change this in a different context? Or how about I change the different target groups? Or what if things happen at different times? So would the conclusion, the account still be the same? So what can I make out of this? Is this the knowledge static and like a wisdom that can be widely used in society forever? Or it might be a knowledge explains a new phenomenon, and then which might be against something different or as exception. So what's the evidence and where's the reference? And then whenever you make questions, you need to have your lines of reasoning. Therefore, in academic writing, just simply write down who said what and where and when is the simple description. So as a student, you must be able to analyze why this account, has been expressed in this way and how this conclusion has been reached. In the same time, you must be able to look into other perspectives or other scholars, researchers, or practitioners' viewpoints, and then synthesize them, compare, contrast, and then see how similar or different they are and how they related. So this is where you need to be able to evaluate, so which is a further level to the simple description. And so what comments can you make? How do other people's view relate to the topic of your research? So this is what we mentioned, the connection and your independent thought. So how can you make sense of the existing literature, and how do they relate or underpin the research you are proposing? So critical writing is the highest level of academic writing expectations, as you can see from Bloom's diagram here. So simply, memorizing or reciting knowledge is not the purpose of a research. So you need to be able to show your understanding, you'll be able to summarizing and synthesizing informations, and you're able to apply this kind of knowledge or concept in a particular context. So that's what we say in research, you must have the academic subject topic and then apply it in a particular context. Yeah. So within that, you must be able to analyze, identifying patterns, organizing ideas, and recognizing the trend, through commenting and analyzing the existing literature and views. And you're also able to synthesize the views, so to be able to create new ideas or modifying, predicting different things by combining all different views together. And also, finally, you're able to evaluate them, assessing the theories, concepts, comparing these ideas, and solving, judging, recommending, rating, and then to finally make your own independent thought and then create your own live argument in relation to your own research. So as explained above, critical academic writing is just like you behave as a detective. So when you're reading something, so you're not simply just accepting, therefore, that's what it is. So you're able to identify the issues that relate to your research, and then you need to analyze why, or taking part question, why this scholar says that, another scholar says something different, or the practitioner might have something different again in different ways. So and then you evaluate all this evidence, all this literature, looking the pros, cons, strengths, and weaknesses before you come into your judgment or decision. So what these final points you can make out. Yes, really. So it's just like detective. You don't simply, believe into one particular scholar or researcher's viewpoint. And then really critical thinking or writing helps us to recognize the problems or issues, and it helps us obviously to seek solutions, probably that's related to our research, the main goal of our research, yeah? And it helps us interpret data and look into the appraise different situations objectively, solve problems, and which informs decision making. And it also follows in the whole process, there's a logical judgment and reasoned argument behind. As Cattrall, 2005, stated, a very well-renowned academic in academic writing, and then she claims in critical writing, most of the text is dedicated to present a case through providing reasons, using relevant evidence, comparing, evaluating alternative arguments, weighing up conflicting evidence, and forming judgment on the basis of the evidence. So background information of a general nature is used very sparingly, and only essential details are usually included. So description should be kept to a minimum. So this highlighted the all what we've mentioned above. So the description, the analysis, the synthesis, and the evaluation, and before you come up with your own judgment or your own independent thought. So how can you write critically in your literature review then? As we mentioned, analysis is where you may be able to show the evidence of your critical writing. So analysis is where you're taking part of account or a literature point and question yourself who said or what this viewpoint is, and where is this view account based, and when was this formed, and why is that, and how's that? And you keep asking self questions, and then you can look into the pros and cons of this point itself. So for example, you may say, oh, Smith's view fails to take account of this, yeah, so which you may look into the limitations of a particular topic or point. You may see, do 2005 presents a better argument in terms of highlighting the aspect of something, or Smith's view is problematic or questionable or flawed or incomplete because of. The conclusion of McDonald's research is valid, sound, or insightful in that. So as you can say, you can take part of account, looking into the limitations or looking into the significance of something, and then making comments out of it. So this is a way of critical writing. So in a sense, and the first way of critical writing is to evaluate comments on existing literature, where you probably could be criticizing it or appraising it, but always with a live reasoning because of what, yeah, in whatever way. So this could be the usefulness of a definition. Somebody had defined better than others by taking into consideration of something, but it could be, some definition has as lack of the account or less of the credibility because it failed to take into account of something. Okay, or it could be alternatives by balancing and weighing or deciding. You may say those research better informed in the aspect of something. And the reliability or validity of conclusions. So the conclusion of McDonald's example is valid and insightful, or could be flawed or biased in whatever aspect. Okay, so really it kind of informs the consequences of accepting or rejecting a judgment. It can be. So as discussed above, for example, argument between Smith and Bright regarding the role of ethics implies that. So you're making comments. Yeah. So all these can be evidence of critical writing. It is important to note that when you're commenting or evaluating an existing literature, it does not necessarily mean you just evaluate or analyze on one particular argument, but it could be a series of related arguments explaining what they are and how they might be related, strengths, weaknesses of the group of argument, or could be counter argument from the expert point of view or from the literature. So this example really is the example I've provided to you in a Word document with comments. So just as you can say, for example, with a particular point where it says younger students do better, it says similar findings have been done by many other scholars. Yes, so it's a series of related arguments which support the point. But then the comment and the evaluation comes in using the indicator, however. So however, most of these studies were based on sample of students generally aged between 17 and 21, for example. So there, the comment and the analysis of the group argument is to look into the limitations of the research or the particular constraints of the research, focusing on very small sample size. Yeah. So the evaluation, the comment of this particular point or literature is not only based on one singular scholar or researcher, but based on a group of researchers' point of view who are, tend to agree with each other. A second way of writing critically is called synthesizing. So different from analyzing, where you break down, synthesizing is where you're collecting, pulling together, or summarizing all the relevant literature in order to develop new ideas or topics and draw conclusion. So for the literature review, synthesizing relevant experts' views or literature for positions in order to reach the new point, where you could be pulling together different sources of the topic from academics, theorists' point of view, practitioners' point of view, researchers' point of view, as we mentioned in the last presentation, and you're comparing and contrasting all the different views coming from different perspectives and looking into the similarities and differences, because as we know, theoretically it works, might not necessarily work in reality. So therefore the theorist's perspective might be very different from the practitioner's perspective. So it is where you're pulling together all these literature or viewpoints from different perspectives and comparing, contrasting them. Yeah, and you can always applaud or raise concerns of what they have already done, and assessing the strengths and weaknesses of different aspects, ideas, opinions, from that different perspectives or context of the conclusion they have reached. And then you can use different ideas and opinions to inform your own research. Yeah, so this can be done also when you're synthesizing different people's views. It's important you must include an appropriate and relevant linking terms or signposts. So for example, when you want to add to a point or show similar viewpoints, you may use the linking terms like moreover, furthermore, in addition, likewise, similarly. Yeah. But when you want to state an alternative or contrasting viewpoint, you may use the terms however, on the one hand, on the other hand, whereas, nonetheless, rather, differs, by contrast. So it's important you're using the appropriate linking terms to demonstrate how you have synthesized the views and your understanding of these different viewpoints and the relationship between them, whether they are similar or they are different. So this is a more comprehensive list of all the relevant linking terms and phrases. And for example, if you want to order their work, first of all, secondly, add to a point, including examples, stating same point differently, or stating alternative points, or showing results, summarizing or concluding. So it's important you're using, you know, a combination of them instead of using, you know, however all the time when you're stating, you know, contradicting views. As we have mentioned in the last example, where, you know, there's one point stated there are similar findings has been made by different scholars. So this is where the researcher, the writer, has synthesized all the information before the writer, you know, come to analyze and evaluating and making comments. So that is to say, synthesizing, analyzing, you know, they may go hand in hand. So there's no kind of a first and second. You must do analyze, look into what and why and how first before you synthesize or put together, you know, other sources. So you may be able to group all these relevant concepts or the points before you analyze them and comment on them. As we mentioned in the last presentation, it is important that you find the relevant literature that you are able to demonstrate in the academic and the wide range of literature, relevant, academic, and reliable, to be included in your work where you're able to synthesize and analyze them. But that is what you're working on, the existing literature of other people's work. But as a researcher, you need to be engaged in a dialogue. It is important, therefore, to express your own viewpoint. Yeah, what is your own life argument? What is your independent thoughts? So you should not be standing on the fence without a view expressed. So this is the third way of how you can write critically, is where you need to show your independent thought, yeah, your own viewpoint. So which means you have to give your own informed opinion based on your research into what the expert sources and the literature says. Yeah, and the way how you express your own viewpoint need to be in a very formal and objective way. So instead of using I think, you must present your own viewpoint in a passive tense or third person. You may say it indicate or that suggests, yeah. And also another important point is you must speculate your view and should not be very assertive. So for example, you may say from the above discussion 8 in a passive tense or third person, it seems to be the case, yeah. So where you're very tentative, you are not as assertive, because the above discussion you extracted could be from A and B researchers or scholars, and it might, you know, might not be as comprehensive enough, but your viewpoint, it seems to be the case or suggest, is only based on these two and A and B scholar. Therefore, you should avoid being assertive, okay? And also, second example here, say in the context of this research, something may happen or take place, you know, in this particular context. So again, you are using may to indicate your speculation here, yeah. So another two example using is likely to be or implies or appears. So these are all very tentative and speculate your views based on the evidence you have collected. And some other people collect different evidence or different literature might have slightly different view from yours, yeah. So all these tentative languages, what we use is called hedged languages in academic writing, which expresses your hesitation or uncertainty, as well as to demonstrate your politeness and your directness, really. And there's a list of them which has been categorized for your information, which include what we have mentioned, you know, seems to be, looks like, appears to be, which is very often used, or may, might, possible, or probably, or, you know, possibility, it could be the case, or may be possible. So all these phrases should be used, you know, it can be used interchangeably. So please feel free whenever you want to express your own view, and then just to show the politeness and indirectness and, you know, speculate your view, really. It is important to acknowledge that, you know, when you're expressing your view, is almost the point when it comes to a conclusion, and then you may use the terms, for example, therefore, hence, as a result, this may be the case. And most importantly, it's important for you to understand the importance of you expressing your view is to indicate, as we said, your own position, your own independent thought in relation to the particular topic, or the account or point of view, and also to show that you have already evaluated them, and then you kind of understood them, evaluated them, and before you express your own independent thought. Yeah, and also most importantly, you are there to establish the connection of others, the literature, with your own work. So you're a part of the dialogue. You're not only observer looking into what the scholars, researchers, what the literature is about, but also you're a part of it. You are expressing your view. You show how their work related to my research and how the existing literature underpins my research. And going back to the whole essence is the justification of your own research, and so on. The same example there, just added the last bit, as it says, having stated the point, look into the evidence and related topics, evidenced by different scholars with similar findings. And however, where the student has critically evaluated and assessing the validity of this point. And then finally, this researcher or writer have expressed his or her own view or independent thought by saying, as such, the results probably suggest. Yeah, so this is where, based on the existing literature, this researcher made the connection, yeah, and then came into conclusion, expressed, his or her own view here. The example also demonstrates to the very important academic writing skills when it comes to composing a paragraph, as we said, is the PEEL. So I'm sure the AB tutor is going to introduce to you a little bit more on this. But PEEL stands for point, evidence, example, examine, or evaluation, and link. So you're strongly advised to follow this PEEL structure when you construct a paragraph. State the point, give evidence that's supporting the point, and then whenever possible, give examples. And then obviously that could be included with a lot of synthesized information, synthesizing, pull together different resources, literature that is on the topic area. And then next is the evaluation, examining them, and then making comments of them. So this is where the critical writing comes in. And then else link, so link to the point by stating your own perspective or your own independent thought, where you build a connection between you and the existing literature. If you don't do that, so the lecturer, your supervisor, might make a lot of comments, say how, why, so what if kind of comments, yeah? So in summary, when you're writing or constructing a literature review, it's important you demonstrate your criticalness. And then first, you may be analyzing or assessing the existing literature or making comments of the existing literature, but must be with the line of reasoning, yeah? And then you may synthesizing different sources or literature by comparing, contrasting them, looking at the similarities, differences, and then maybe complemented by analyzing or commenting on them as well. And then thirdly, you must express your own independent thought objectively. Okay, and where you're stating your own view, you may have to speculate using the hedged languages or being very tentative. So it is very important to note that when you're writing critically in the literature review, it doesn't mean that you need to write negatively. You always criticize other people's research, yeah? It's not a negative account or criticism, as we mentioned earlier. And it could be challenging the claims or argument or the points as stated by the existing scholar, and then looking into the limitations or criticizing on the particular elements. And it must be balanced, logical, and reasoned in an objective way. There's always a reason why you say this might be limited in this particular aspect. So you must give the lines of reasoning. And it may involve evaluative use of expert views, argument, and counter-argument as well. So as we mentioned earlier, this person's research present a better argument because of what, in whatever way. Yeah, so you always, so not only negatively, but you may see its better account is more valid, insightful. It could be a praise as well. Secondly, you must avoid being very assertive and always support your argument with a line of reasoning. Okay, so you never just state the point for the sake of it, but you always support yourself. And also, it's important to note that when you're synthesizing different views from different scholars, researchers, it's important that you may need to notice or distinguish between the different views, of them as well. So yes, but, no, but. Yes, where you're using the hedges and where you're using the tentative language is important. So for example, you may say, writers X and Y, Z agrees in this, but each of their findings are different in a particular ways, or they're having different emphasis in different views. Lastly, more resources on critical thinking and writing can be found from the 2 links. So last but not least, I strongly recommend you to go to my annotated literature review example, which is on the module site, to find out the example of literature review and how they have done a critical literature review, and what is the critical point, and how they constructed the critical evaluation within this literature review, and how they finished this literature review in connection with these researchers' own research. So please go to the module site and find the Word document.